So all computers should be in family spaces. And ideally, parents or mentors should be around when kids are using computers. If you work during the day and your kids come home from school and there's 2 or 3 hours where they're by themselves at home, that should be non-computer time. Do whatever you have to do so that they're not using the computer during that time. And if they're 8, it's easy. You just take it with you. Right? If they're 12, it's a difficult conversation for a week and lots of tantrums. If they're 15, you're probably stuck at that point because they'll go out and buy their own computer. Right? Limit recreational screen time. Kids have to do homework, yes, and that often involves the computer. But here's the guideline about what's ideal. And it sounds crazy to be talking about numbers so low if you have a technology addiction problem with your kids. But these kinds of numbers are quite doable if you start doing it early. If you start doing it when your kids are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, this is totally doable. The reason you can make it happen is you talk about this with your kids, and you educate them about what like with smoking, right? We educate our kids about smoking. We say, here, smoking kills 2/3 of all smokers. Smoking is really bad for your health. It's bad in all kinds of ways. So all kinds of education. There's a stop smoking poster that I saw in the hallway here, right? And the numbers of kids who smoke, those numbers are dropping because of education about smoking. We need to do the same thing with technology. We need to say to our kids, here, there's risks. It's not just I'm going on and playing a game and having fun. There's risks. There's social skills risks. There's risks of exposure to inappropriate material. There's isolation risks. There's all kinds of stuff the kids need to know about. And when kids are brought into the conversation as equal partners, they will talk about it with you. And they will give their perspective. And they will say, yes, I think I agree with you on that, and I don't agree with you on that. My son is involved in a protracted 6-month negotiation with me now to boost his daily computer time from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Because his sister, who's 15, has 30 minutes, and he has 20. And he's very curious to know the exact date when we moved her from 20 to 30. And because he sees himself as being more responsible than her, and he has been actually, he feels like that date should be pushed back a little bit. And every week, there's some new angle of negotiation of how we could boost it. And we can joke about it and laugh about it, and we have a family conversation about it. And he probably is going to get the 30 minutes before his sister did. But as long as it's part of the family conversation, you're okay. It's when it stops being a conversation and becomes adversarial that you have a bigger problem. Physical exercise. An hour a day for everyone. This is not exactly about tech, but it is. If you're spending an hour exercising, you're not spending an hour on the computer in a very practical way. If you're spending an hour exercising, you are much less likely to want to go on the computer for the hour after that. There's all kinds of ways in which exercise has a spontaneously liberating function from technology. So do whatever you have to do with your kids. I don't mean necessarily that you just suddenly go and enroll them in 9 different after-school sports activities. Find something you can do as a family where you spend time as many days in the week as you can. And that might just be weekends and 1 day a week, 1 evening a week, right? And then the child might be involved in some kind of sport they enjoy. This in itself goes a long way. It's part diversion tactic and part nervous system imprinting. Talk with your kids about the emotional benefits that they get from online cultures. What emotionally does the gaming do for them? How does it make them feel empowered? How does it make them feel part of a community? How does it make them feel strong? How does it make them feel like they belong? Find that piece. Find that emotional piece. And then find a way to replicate it in the online world. The non-online world. The real world. Excuse me. Find a way to extract the emotional benefit that they get from online experience and reproduce it in the real world. So you take the energy from that system and transfer it into this system. So, if their emotional benefit is that they find that they have a community of peers who welcome them and make them feel comfortable, try to help them find a community of peers in the real world where they are welcomed and made to feel comfortable. The list of healthy activities that I referred to a few minutes ago is linked through there. Recognize that kids will find ways around all types of computer surveillance strategies implemented by parents. Don't even bother. Your kids know way more than you do about this. They will get around it very, very quickly. I'll give you two sobering examples. One is I was involved in a situation where two parents worked. They had two boys at home, 11 and 13. And these boys would come home after school, and there was a period of 2 or 3 hours where their parents were still at work. And the parents were concerned about their kids' computer use, gaming use, and so on. So they installed key logging software on the computer to track the kids' activities. Pretty soon after installing the key logging software, the kids discovered that the parents had installed the key logging software. The kids hijacked the key logging software and turned it on the parents and extracted the parents' usernames and passwords from all the parents' online activities, including their banking. The kids set up accounts through the parents' banking at various places where they could buy products, like video games, and started ordering them online. Now, these were kids who were 11 and 13, and I don't think they thought it all the way through to realize that their parents were going to find out about this eventually, right? If not from the packages coming to the front door, then from the bank statements. So they were eventually caught. But it's a good and common example. Kids will turn it around against you if you try it without involving them. Another example is I was involved in a situation where kids in a school had tried to find ways around the computer surveillance methods that the school had implemented. And the school had a control room where they could see all the computers in the school, all the screens of all the computers in the school, and they could see what was happening on those screens. And some of these were desktops and some of them were laptops. And some of these kids were taking these laptops home, right? And the kids figured out that if they installed Linux, which is an alternative operating system, that's what I use, if they installed Linux on the laptop through a flash drive, one of those little thumb drives that you plug in, right? If they installed it on the flash drive, they could hijack the laptop. So they would take these laptops home, they would install Linux on the flash drive, they would bring the computer back to school, boot from the flash drive, they could go around all the security systems, and they started a competition amongst themselves to see who could create the best fake screen for the control room. So these kids are playing, Halo, right, in the back of the classroom, and meanwhile in the control room, there's a nice little image of a child working on a Microsoft Word document for Social Studies 9, right? It was incredible, and it became a whole cultural thing for the kids about, how can we get around the system? Now the school freaked out, right? When they tried to lock it down. The technology teacher at the school, he did a really good thing. He devoted a series of classes to how they did it, right? And talked about computer security, and talked about Linux, and talked about flash drives, and talked on laptops, and ways around computer security, and how that looks in the kid world, how it looks in the real world, how online banking security works, how encryption works. And he built a whole series of educational modules for these kids based on their interest and their orienting, right? So don't use surveillance for its own sake. Focus instead on education and awareness of risks. Now,